Welcome to the Anime Audiophile Podcast. Enjoy. Itachi Shinden, Book of Dark Night. Chapter 5 Part 2. Sitting with his arms crossed and his eyes closed, Fugaku listened to the sound of the sliding door closing and opened his eyes. His own room. He was sitting cross-legged, looking at the alcove where the seat of honor was set on his right, his back turned to the wall of the right side of the room. It was his own son opening the sliding door that led to the hall and showing his face. "Did you need something, father?" His too-talented son made no attempt to warn the recent, excessive chill in his voice as he stayed outside the door. "Come in," Fugaku urged. Itachi finally, reluctantly, stepped over the threshold to the room. He closed the sliding door behind him and sat down properly on his knees before his father. "I heard you went to the park with Sasuke." "I did." He had seen the two come home covered in sweat and called Itachi in after his bath. His younger son was sitting at the table and talking with his mother. "I have to prepare for my mission tomorrow. I'd appreciate it if you could be brief about your business," Itachi said, face stiffening, clearly on guard against his father. It was no wonder. Recently, they hadn't had any semblance of a conversation. About the only opportunity they had to hear each other's voices was at the regular meetings. And with all eyes on him, Fugaku couldn't put on a fatherly face there. Given that they had nothing but formal contact with each other, like strangers, it was only natural that a distance would grow between them. "Don't speak so stiffly," Fugaku said, and smiled. It was the best smile he could muster. In general, he rarely smiled. As the head of the military police force, as the man who pulled together all the young people of the clan, he felt that he must not show reckless emotion. No. When he thought about it, he had never really smiled, not since he was little. Which reminded him. When had he last seen his son smile? He couldn't remember. "My son and I are alike." A strange joy rose up in his chest. The delight Fugaku felt at that moment was different from the simple emotion of a parent at their child resembling them. His son was the genius of the academy, passing his Chunin exams on his own, the first Uchiha posted to the Anbu. And Fugaku's joy came from the fact that such a storied ninja would resemble him. It was fairly twisted for a father to see his own son as an object of aspiration. Fugaku himself was very aware of that. Which was why, sometimes, he found his son unpleasant. As a man, rather than as a father, he was forced to acknowledge the fact that he had lost. This led to the cool attitude he adopted toward Itachi. He knew it was foolish as a parent. But his pride as a ninja simply could not rejoice in Itachi's advancement in the world. And now his son was starting to move away from him. "How is your work with the Anbu?" he asked, still smiling. Itachi looked at him with wary eyes. "As long as I am putting into practice the things I've learned since graduating from the academy, there is no how." It was a model answer. Apparently, his dispassionate son had the idea that at that moment, he was interacting with the man who governed the young people of the clan rather than his father. "Yashiro and Inabi aren't here," Fugaku remarked, trying hard to keep his tone gentle. "I'm your father, and you are my son. Those are the only people in this room." Itachi was a clever child. All Fugaku had to say was that, and the boy seemed to understand his father's thinking. Still, Itachi did not immediately become open and straightforward, the way he had when he was 5 or 6. His guard relaxed slightly, that was the extent of his heart softening. Even so, his eyes became much calmer than they had been. "Things haven't changed, really, from when I wasn't in the Anbu." "You're not doing any difficult work?" "There is some of that," his son murmured. And then he lowered his eyes for an instant, before looking straight at his father once more. "Given that I'm in the Anbu, no weakness can be tolerated." "That's my boy." His favorite thing to say. When he was praising his son, those were always the words he used. But at some point, it started feeling like he was saying it to bolster himself, rather than his son. Trying to keep his talented son beneath him, he bound him with the words "my boy." That's what he felt like. Saying it was already a habit. When he wanted to praise his son, the words came out before he even had the chance to think, so that after he said, "That's my boy," a sharp thorn would stab into his heart. And again that day, Fugaku felt the pain in his chest. "Don't worry about things at the meeting," he said, as if to push aside the uneasiness in the area of his solar plexus. "What?" His son looked surprised at his words. He was likely assuming Fugaku would rebuke him for the exchange with Yashiro and the others at the meeting. Itachi was surprised at having that expectation betrayed. "It's not as though everyone in the clan thinks the same way. I have no intention of forcing our thinking on you. Rather than a stone drifting along with a strong current, I want you to be a man, like a rock that stands against the current and pierces it. Father, you do not need to yield in your own thinking. If you cannot accept what Yashiro and the others say, then you can stand up and proudly assert your own ideas. But it doesn't seem like they would tolerate that at the meeting. It is indeed as you say." A sigh slipped from between Fugaku's lips. The young people are moved by passion, and they lose sight of themselves. And they expel those who don't agree with them, charging forward toward what they believe to be lofty. "Father," Itachi murmured. "What?" "Say it." "All right." Looking as though he had resolved himself, the boy began to speak. "Do you have a different opinion than they do, father?" "I do not," Fugaku asserted. "My feelings are the same as theirs. I am simply not so young as to cast out differing ideas." His son's disappointment was so clear, he could almost pick it up in his hand. "Is that so?" The boulder had already begun to roll. There was nothing to be done about it at this late date. Or rather, Fugaku had no intention of doing anything. Rising to action was the only possibility left to their clan. But he did not want to force his son to obey. "You should stay true to your thinking. Fight, be confused, be lost, and come through that to find your answer. And once you find it, make your decision, and do not waver from it. Find your answer, and be ready to follow through. That is determination." Determination, yes. There are few people in this world who live their lives with their own determination. They leave their decisions to others, and avert their eyes from responsibility. You must not live like that, at least. Move forward in your life, making your own decisions. Fugaku felt something hot in his eyes. He tried desperately to calm the emotions in his heart without his son noticing. "I understand," Itachi said, like a small battle cry, and turned passionate eyes on his father. "I will never leave the decisions in my own life to someone else. Now that is my boy." For the first time in a long time, Fugaku was able to say the words in a straightforward way. There was no pain in his heart. The slight trembling of Hiruzen's eyebrows did not escape Danzo's notice. The formal meeting room at the Hokage residence, the seat where budgetary policy for the governance of the village of Konoha was determined. In addition to Hiruzen and Danzo, the counselors Koharu and Hamura were there. At this meeting, they would set the basic policy, and, taking that into consideration, Hiruzen would select the personnel in village government and the official budgets. About the budget for the military police force. Taking his eyes off the document he had before him, Hiruzen looked at the other three. In his hand was their proposal. The basic idea is to significantly reduce the budget, but what exactly is the meaning of this, Koharu? Hearing her name, Udatane Koharu opened her eyes a narrow slit and peered at Hiruzen. It's been 7 years since the end of the war. Life has gotten back to normal, for the most part. And it has become customary for the Umbud to investigate serious and brutal crimes. The current role of the military police force is quite limited. There's no need for the same budget they've had in the past, is there? That said, isn't cutting their budget by 40% a bit too abrupt? A cut like this will also have a significant effect on military police force personnel. Staring at the sour look on Hiruzen's face, Mitokado Hamura opened his mouth. Rebuilding after the Nine Tails attack is mostly complete. The urgent need now is for new facilities and wider roads. And now that early graduation has been abolished, the academy will need to expand soon, as well. We don't have the extra resources for a shrinking organization. I know that, but if we do this in such a way that we make the military police force alone the enemy, it will spur dissatisfaction among them. Danzo spat, seizing his opportunity. He continued without a pause. I will ask you then, is there another division in this village that is growing smaller as obviously as the military police force? The cause for the reduction is clear: peace in the village and the expansion of Umbu duties. The military police force can perform no other role than maintaining the peace. And given the negative feelings of dissatisfaction they harbor toward the village, it's doubtful as to whether or not they are faithfully performing even that role. I feel that maintaining their current budget is simply pampering them. It is not pampering. It's sheltering. Sheltering? Why would people with no impediment to their work need to be sheltered? Because the places where they can be active have been severely limited by people like you, who are prejudiced against that clan. Hiruzen pounded his desk and stood up, as Hamura and Koharu watched coolly. Rather than pushing back the grin that spread across his face, Danzo turned to the third Hokage, his old acquaintance, and said, "So, you would shelter them because there is prejudice. Isn't that in and of itself an act of distancing and discrimination? What did you? It's precisely because they have the military police force to work at, and because they are assured a more than ample budget from the village, that the Uchiha clan refuse contact with outsiders, and sneak around with people from their own circle. You distance them in the framework of the military police force under the pretext of sheltering them, and so you allow them to grow this evil flower of dissatisfaction within themselves. Isn't that so?" The formation and management of the military police force was the dying wish of the second Hokage. "Don't you feel that way of thinking is outdated?" Danzo asked. "I believe a revolution is necessary, now especially when the Great War is over, and the scars from Nine Tails' attack are beginning to heal. But, what does everyone else think?" "I have no objection," Koharu voiced her agreement. Hamura nodded silently. Danzo had already gone round to speak to them, and the three were of the same opinion on the matter of reducing the military police force budget. Only Hiruzen was on the outside. "And what will we do when the Uchiha clan's dissatisfaction explodes?" "You're using Shisui to prevent that, are you not?" Danzo struck the final blow. It hit home. Hiruzen faltered. "Wasn't that the reason you pulled the young ninja, so worried about his clan, from his regular missions, gave him a position in name only, and permitted him a certain level of independence?" 30%, then, Hiruzen said hoarsely. A bitter choice. He was acting exactly as Danzo had expected. Danzo didn't believe a reduction of 40% was possible either. He had anticipated 30% being the point of compromise. If we cut any more than 30% of their budget, we won't escape backlash from the military police force. I respect the Hokage's decision. Hiruzen made an obviously disgusted face at Danzo's seemingly deliberate words. Shisui had called him to their usual cliff. It was already the middle of the night. The village and the compound were asleep. Still, the eyes of the Umbu who watched over the compound were open. During Itachi's work monitoring the clan, he had memorized the angles of all the cameras watching them. He had already devised a route that allowed him to move freely through the compound, slipping through the slight gaps that rose up in the angles between cameras. He had only told Shisui about the Umbu's monitoring and the route through their blind spots. Shisui was the sole ninja he could trust. He definitely wouldn't leak the information to anyone else. He should have been making his way to the cliff through the blind spot route as well. No one knew about their meeting. Once Itachi had slipped through the compound and escaped the eyes of the cameras, he ran. The moon, in its last quarter, glittered nearby in the center of the sky. Beneath shining stars that looked as though they would come tumbling down, he ran intently, keeping to the shadows. The forest abruptly split, revealing his destination, the cliff, a human figure on the edge of the rough rock. Standing with his back to Itachi, Shisui was staring at the raging river that could be seen below the cliff. Itachi raced over and stopped behind him. "Sorry to make you wait." "I just got here, too," Shisui said, turning around, exhaustion obvious on his face. He had faint bags under his eyes, and his cheeks were a little hollow. His jaw, significantly tapered down, looked more like a mark of overwork than growth into adulthood. "You look really tired." "Things have been happening." Shisui dropped his eyes, a shadow he couldn't hide clinging to his face. "I know I said we'd work together," Itachi said in a gentle voice, as if sympathizing with his friend. "Sorry for always leaving things to you. You can't do anything that would cause you to neglect your missions. We're both in the Embu, but I've got permission from the Lord Hokage to move freely. It's only natural I'd be working. There's nothing for you to feel bad about." His friend was kind enough to say that, but Itachi keenly felt his own worthlessness. Even as they shared the same determination to prevent their clan's coup d'etat, what exactly had he done? Shisui had gotten the right to act alone to dig into the clan's conspiracy and was investigating their movements day and night. Unlike him, Itachi was always putting the clan off, swamped with his daily missions. Even still, Shisui treated Itachi as someone of the same mind. Which was exactly why they had slipped away from the eyes of their monitors to meet outside the compound like this. "Before I get into it, there's something I want to tell you," Shisui started, his gaze so sharp, it was painful. "The clan suspects you. You don't have to tell me that. I know. A ninja of the clan's been ordered to monitor you." "What?" The clan was watching Itachi. And Shisui was saying that the one accepting this role was a ninja of the same clan. Who in the clan was in a position to hand down orders to his brethren? His father. "I can't believe he would." "It's true, Itachi. I witnessed it myself, so there's no doubt about it." "What do you mean?" "I mean, the one given the task of watching you is me." Shisui's words pierced his heart. His father had ordered Shisui to watch him? "They're using the fact that I'm close to you. 3 senior officials from the military police force came to order me to monitor you," Shisui said, as if hearing Itachi's voice in his head. 3 senior officials. Yashiro, Inabi, Tekka. They suspect you. And you and Yashiro did have some fierce words at the meeting." Shisui was covertly telling him that it wasn't his father. But his father was in the position to give orders to those 3. Even if Yashiro and the others were the ones who approached Shisui, Itachi didn't know exactly where that order had originated. A black doubt rose up in his heart, the polar opposite of the love he had felt at his father's kind words earlier. Exactly which one was his real father? "I probably don't need to say this, but I'll make some things up and report back to them. So you can relax." He didn't doubt Shisui. "But there's no doubt that the radicals in the clan have their eyes on you." "I was ready for that. That firmness is both a good thing and a weak point for you, you know," Shisui said, smiling. "I like it." His friend turned his eyes up to the sky and took in the moon hanging in the dark. "You have this strength, like no matter what happens to you, your way of thinking will never be shaken. If it's to do what you believe in, you'll stand and face whatever enormous force might rise up before you without flinching. Which is exactly why I can trust you." And Shisui turned his eyes away from the slice of moon and slid his eyes along the ground before looking directly at Itachi. "I can tell you what I've decided." "What happened, Shisui?" "You know what day tomorrow is, right?" Itachi nodded silently. "The regular meeting of the clan. Last time, his father had said that this meeting would be critical. They would decide the schedule for the coup. In other words, at the meeting the following day, the consensus of opinion of the clan would be confirmed, and the resolve to act would become fixed. If everything goes as usual at the meeting tomorrow, we won't be able to stop things." "What are you planning to do?" "Tomorrow, I'm going to attack your father on his way to Nakano Shrine." Itachi couldn't stop his heart from racing. "Relax. I'm not going to kill Lord Fugaku or anything. I'm just going to trap him in a Jinjutsu. The Sharingan you used that time with Mukai? Exactly, Shisue's eyes glowed red in the darkness. And then, the 3 Magatama patterns in each eye grew larger and merged into one. Mangekyo Sharingan. After that day, Itachi had looked into this himself. In old Uchiha documents, only the existence of the Mangekyo Sharingan was noted. The record stopped with the mention that its power far surpassed that of the normal Sharingan. It further noted that the number of people who had activated this Sharingan could be counted on both hands, perhaps, and that even for members of the clan, it was a visual jutsu with many unknowns. Even Lord Fugaku, the fearsome Wicked Eye, won't be able to avoid these eyes. But I mean, trapping him in a Jinjutsu, what are you actually going to do? At the same time as I awakened these eyes, I got a certain jutsu. A jutsu called Koto Ematsukami. Koto Ematsukami, Itachi felt an indescribable unearthliness in the word. It puts the person trapped in the Jinjutsu into a state of total awareness. Then, you can make them do what you want. Itachi understood that this was basically what visual jutsu was. Whether or not the target was aware of what was happening was determined by the ninja applying the jutsu. The ninja incited awareness in the target that they were caught in a jutsu, leading the target to doubt everything and get caught up in the jutsu. Or else the target unconsciously sank bit by bit into the jutsu, so that by the time they realized what was going on, there was nothing they could do about it. This Koto Ematsukami fell into the latter category, which wasn't particularly uncommon for a visual jutsu. The advantage of this technique is that the effect and the duration are both multiplied because of the power of the Mangekyo Sharingan, Shisui added. As if urging him to explain, Itachi stayed silent and continued to stare at his friend's strange Sharingan. For the visual jutsu of a normal Sharingan, your gaze has to intersect with the gaze of your intended target to some degree. You need that direct action and the flow of chakra. But the Mangekyo Sharingan allows me to sidestep all that a bit. I just have to look at my target's eyes, and I can pour my chakra in even if our gazes aren't intersecting. And the amount of chakra is several times more than with normal Sharingan. So the target falls into the visual jutsu instantly. They have no idea anything's even happened. So you mean by the time the enemy sees you, they're already in the jutsu? That's it exactly. And you're going to use that on my father? Shisui nodded forcefully. If I can just get him in Koto Ematsukami, I can make Lord Fugaku tell everyone the coup is off. And I can make Fugaku himself believe from the bottom of his heart that it was his own idea. You can write over the mind of the ringleader? It's only the fact that it's your father that makes me hesitate. You don't have to worry about that, Itachi asserted. If it were to stop a coup d'etat, he would gladly do anything, even if it meant reaching into his own father's mind. It was just that the one who could actually execute this plan was Shisui. Don't come to the meeting tomorrow, Itachi. Why not? The radical faction suspects you. If I make Lord Fugaku's attitude change abruptly, you're the first one they'll point their fingers at. I don't know what they'll do if you're at the meeting. You're saying they'd attack me? Itachi thought that would be just fine. The few years since he became a ninja had taught him that in order to avoid a large fight, sometimes you couldn't avoid a small one. To rid this world of all fighting, a serious sacrifice was necessary. If they attack me, I'll just fight them off. Yashiro and the rest don't have a chance against you. But that skirmish would inevitably interrupt this important meeting. So you're going to take control of my father and force everyone to go in the other direction, huh? Yeah, Shisui grabbed Itachi's shoulders. If I pull it off, the clan's enthusiasm for the coup should drop. We knock down Lord Fugaku, create an opening, and gradually win members of the clan over to the anti-war side. Isn't there anything I can do? Wait here until the meeting's over. But it'll definitely work, Shisui grinned forcefully. I'll come here to report the results of the meeting. Just wait till then. The next time we meet, the clan will have taken a step toward peace. We'll need your strength after that. I know you'll be critical, given how far beyond the clan you've gone. So you totally can't die before then, no matter what happens. Leave everything to me tomorrow. Please. His good friend bowed his head deeply. Sorry, I can't help at such an important time as this, Itachi said, lowering his own head. Itachi. His friend tightened his grip on his shoulders. Our fight starts tomorrow. I've been ready for a long time. End of part 2. Thank you for listening. Remember to like and subscribe for lots more.